Good afternoon, everyone. This is Midlands Mediation Center here again with you, welcoming you back to our second conversation of the day as to why I vote. We are excited to have Sunita Kumar here with us. She is a volunteer mediator here at Midlands Mediation Center, but more importantly, she is a mediator practitioner who is part of not only Midlands Mediation Center here in South Carolina, but she also volunteers Upstate Mediation Center and is currently working with the Charleston Mediation Center. So we're excited to have Sunita here. She is one who literally loves this work that we do in community mediation, where we're trying to help our communities initiate, facilitate, and educate them on how they can work collaboratively together to bring about systemic change in community through dialogues, conversation, and just being present with one another. So we are so grateful that she has taken time to get today to join us in this conversation, to share with us. Remember, we're here to have people hear many voices as to why we vote. Not only why we vote, but why is it important that we vote? So I just want to say thank you, Sunita, for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Kabrina, for having me, and I'm delighted to share some views on voting, and hopefully it will help someone and encourage them to vote. And we want to make sure that everybody does get out there to vote. So I'm happy to
Awesome.
be here.
Thank you. So our first question is, why do you vote?
Well, Kabrina, for me, voting is a unique opportunity. And I say that is not just a unique opportunity for me. I mean, historically, for each and every one of us here in the United States, it doesn't matter what our background, whether, from the original colonists that fought the British for the right to vote, to create their own nation, to the right to vote extended to Native Americans, to Black Americans, to immigrants. There was a time when if you were an immigrant from Germany, you couldn't vote. So, I mean, I think we're all here, whatever our background, whatever our personal history, we all have this unique opportunity to vote. And I certainly want to exercise my opportunity to vote.
Oh, that is so awesome, Sunita. That is amazing. The second question that we have is, when you think about your background, what was it that your family and or your community taught you as it related to voting?
Well, that brings to mind I had a great uncle who actually he spent months in jail in India during the time of the freedom movement when India was under the colonial empire. But he fought to get that right of independence. But what he taught me is it doesn't stop there. It really has to continue. I met him. I remember a conversation 50 years later in the late
Mhm.
90s where he told me, he says, when I look at what we fought for and then I see what's happened to our country, it brings tears to my eyes. And what I think he was reflecting on, it is not just our right to vote or our ability to vote or our casting the vote. It really is about each of us together knitting that a positive web that we all work together to create a society that is beneficial for all of us. And so for me, it doesn't stop with the vote. I mean, the vote is valuable, but our work continues no matter who's elected. And I think that's the most important thing, that there are systems in place that we can work with no matter who's elected. And so I think that's what I've learned as something very valuable to take away.
Oh, that is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know about your uncle, but I can see where you get a lot of your energy from, and that's awesome. And I think that whole thing is that it doesn't stop with our voting, but then us holding those accountable and ourselves accountable to make this democracy work. Because voting is the first step, but the other step is being part of the solutions and not sitting back waiting to see what's going to happen, but to be a part of making things happen. So thank you so much for that. The last thing is a very simple question: is how do we get other people to be excited about voting, to really want to exercise their right to vote and come out to the polls and vote on during this election?
So I think you shouldn't be worried if you haven't been paying attention to the issues. It can be your first step. Even if you don't know all the people on the ballot, there's going to be more people on there than the presidential candidate. But you'll get exposure to what goes into the vote. And if it's your first time, that's okay. I mean, we all have to start somewhere. And I think, and the more people we have out there at the vote that are inclined to keep the calm, to bring the peace with them, I think that's going to be so important. And so we can be a positive force, and we should all be, as much as we can, a positive force in all of this. And again, I want to remind everybody that, democracy is a system created by man. I mean, it has natural tendencies, which are to chaos and a word called entropy. But if it's a delicate balance. You've got to take care of it, and if you don't take care of it, or if you excite it in the wrong way, it can deconstruct, and I don't think we want to deconstruct it. I view democracy as imperfect, but so are we all. And I think part of that is we've got to work at it every day. You can build a house, but if you don't maintain it, it's going to start falling apart. And I think this is our house. We live in it together. It's got many rooms, it's got many places, but it has places where we can be together, we can be on our own. And I think we've got to help maintain that house. So if you can think of that vision, our house together, I think that would be my way of saying it's a first step. It's a step. It's not the end step at all. I mean, we've got so many ways to engage positively. I'm not a protester per se, but I can think of ways to engage that will lead to positive engagement and dialogue, which is what the center is all about.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. One of the things we've been pushing here at Midlands Mediation Center is that voting is a peaceful act of protest because your vote makes change happen. So if you exercise that vote, then your voice is heard and people can see, even if a majority doesn't go your way, at least they see that there are some people that have a different view. So thank you, Sunita, for joining us today in this conversation. Again, I want to remind everybody, we're here not to promote any one particular candidate, any one particular thought, but to promote the idea that democracy works when we all vote. And so we want everybody to exercise their right to vote, to go to the polls and vote. We got 27 days to vote. Here in Richland County, we have 6 satellite locations that are open that gives you the opportunity to cast your vote. Your vote matters. So if you don't remember anything else from this conversation, remember to vote, and again, vote. Thank you so much for being with us. Hope you get to tune in next week when we have other people that share their voice